The first time I saw my husband's name in someone else's Instagram post, I thought it was an innocent mistake. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. James Bradley, thanking you for everything, read the caption beneath a carefully filtered photo of a bronzed woman on a beach, her face partially obscured by oversized sunglasses and a wide-brimmed hat. The crystal blue waters of what I later learned was the Amalfi Coast stretched behind her. It was the hashtags that made me pause. New me. Forever grateful. Worth every penny. I might have scrolled past entirely if not for the notification that had popped up on my husband's phone while he showered that morning. A simple Instagram alert. Cassandra Milan tagged you in a post. He'd swiped it away quickly when he returned to the bedroom, but not before I'd caught the username and the beginning of a message that seemed oddly intimate. That night, after Daniel fell asleep, his breathing heavy and rhythmic beside me, I pulled up Instagram on my own phone. I rarely used social media. My position as Chief Financial Officer at Veritech Solutions demanded discretion, but I maintained accounts to keep tabs on industry trends and competitors. Within seconds, I found her profile. Cassandra Milan, 29, beauty influencer and lifestyle curator with 127,000 followers. Her bio read, "Becoming the best version of myself, one day at a time." I scrolled through her feed, each image more polished than the last. Cassandra at exclusive restaurants, Cassandra on yachts, Cassandra in penthouse suites. Her transformation was documented in meticulous detail. The gradual refinement of her features, her body, her entire aesthetic. The comment section overflowed with praise and questions about her glow up. But it was a post from exactly 8 weeks ago that made my blood freeze in my veins. Cassandra, wrapped in a hospital gown, giving a thumbs up from a hospital bed. The caption read, "Day of Transformation." Beyond excited for this new chapter. Special thanks to Dr. Harmon and his incredible team at Elysian Aesthetics. Dreams really do come true. Blessed new beginnings. 8 weeks ago, Daniel had told me he was flying to Los Angeles for an emergency meeting with Westridge investors. A potential $50 million deal that couldn't wait. I'd helped him pack, kissed him goodbye at 4 a.m., and wished him luck. He'd returned 3 days later, looking exhausted but claiming the meetings had gone well. The deal was progressing. My hands trembled as I pulled up our joint bank account on my phone. We'd maintained separate accounts for our personal spending, but shared one for household expenses and major purchases. Daniel had been adamant about this arrangement from the beginning of our marriage. His money was his, my money was mine, and we contributed equally to the joint fund despite my significantly higher salary. The transaction stared back at me. $52,483 to Elysian Aesthetics. Dated exactly 8 weeks ago. $52,000. For her face. For her body. Paid from our joint account. I set my phone down and studied my sleeping husband's face in the dim light filtering through our bedroom curtains. Daniel Bradley, 43, Vice President of Business Development at Meridian Consulting. Handsome in that polished corporate way. Salt and pepper hair always perfectly styled. Wardrobe exclusively Hugo Boss and Armani. Perpetual Rolex gleaming on his wrist. He'd pursued me relentlessly when we met at an industry conference 5 years ago, his confidence bordering on arrogance. "We'd make a power couple," he'd said, sliding his business card across the bar. CEO and CFO, think of the possibilities. I'd been flattered. At 38, I'd prioritized my career over relationships, climbing the corporate ladder with single-minded determination. Daniel had seemed like the perfect complement. Ambitious, intelligent, and understanding of the demands of executive-level work. We married 11 months later. A pragmatic decision as much as a romantic one. Now, watching him sleep, I felt an icy clarity spread through me. The signs had been there. Late nights at the office, mysterious weekend golf trips with clients, the growing emotional distance. Classic cliches I'd been too busy or too trusting to acknowledge. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I slipped out of bed and padded silently to my home office, closing the door behind me. My mind was already calculating, strategizing. Years of high-stakes financial management had taught me to think several moves ahead, to consider all angles before making a decision. The evidence was damning, but not conclusive. I needed more. I opened my laptop and began a methodical investigation. Social media accounts, email headers, credit card statements, phone records. Daniel had always been careless with his passwords, using variations of his birth year and our anniversary across multiple accounts. Amateur mistakes. By 3 a.m., I had compiled enough information to confirm my suspicions beyond any doubt. The affair had been going on for at least 7 months. Cassandra Milan, former receptionist at Meridian Consulting, now influencer thanks to my husband's financial support. Their digital footprint was a chronicle of betrayal, hotel bookings, flight itineraries, restaurant receipts, and most damning of all, a separate email account dedicated entirely to their correspondence. The messages made me physically ill. Not just the explicit content, but the casual cruelty. They laughed about me, about my dedication to my work, about how I was too busy counting other people's money to notice what was happening right under my nose. Daniel had shared intimate details of our marriage, our finances, our future plans. Rebecca's company is being positioned for acquisition. One email read, "Once the deal goes through, her stock options will be worth millions. We just need to be patient a little longer." I sat back in my chair, the blue light from my monitor illuminating the darkness. The betrayal was complete. Not just an affair, but a calculated plan to benefit from my professional success. A cold, familiar sensation settled in my chest. The same feeling I'd experienced at 22 when my father's company was systematically dismantled by corporate raiders after his death, leaving my mother and me with nothing but debt and broken promises. I'd rebuilt from those ashes, vowing never to be vulnerable again. Yet here I was. I closed my laptop and returned to bed, sliding under the covers with precise movements to avoid waking Daniel. I stared at the ceiling, my mind working through scenarios and contingencies with mechanical efficiency. By dawn, I had formulated a plan. "You seem distracted," Daniel observed over breakfast the next morning, scrolling through emails on his phone while picking at his protein-packed meal. "Big day at the office?" I smiled, pouring myself another cup of coffee. "Just thinking about the Peterson acquisition. The numbers aren't quite lining up." "You'll figure it out." "You always do." He glanced up briefly. "That's why they pay you the big bucks, right?" I nodded, noting the slight edge in his voice when referencing my salary. "Speaking of money, I was reviewing our accounts last night. There was a large transaction I didn't recognize." His fingers froze mid-scroll. A microsecond of panic flashed across his face before his features rearranged into casual curiosity. "Oh? Which account?" "The joint one." "A payment to Elysian Aesthetics? Over $50,000. Daniel set his phone down carefully. "Ah, that. I was going to tell you about it. It's an investment in a medical startup. One of my clients connected me with them. Cosmetic procedures are booming. Aging population, Instagram culture. It's a guaranteed return." The lie flowed so smoothly I almost admired his performance. 5 years of marriage, and I'd never realized what an accomplished actor he was. "Interesting," I said, maintaining my neutral expression. "Though we usually discuss investments of that size beforehand, especially from the joint account." "You're right, I should have mentioned it." He reached across the table to squeeze my hand. I got excited about the opportunity and jumped on it, but I've already seen a 12% return. "I'll show you the portfolio later. I'd like that." I stood up, gathering my dishes. "I should get going." "Board meeting at 9. Daniel caught my wrist as I passed, pulling me down for a kiss. "Knock 'em dead, CFO." I smiled against his lips, the taste of his betrayal bitter on my tongue. My executive assistant, Marcus, was waiting when I arrived at the Veritech offices, tablet in hand and ready with my schedule for the day. "The board members are gathering in the conference room. he reported, falling into step beside me. Legal sent over the revised terms for the Peterson deal, and Tokyo is requesting a call to discuss the expansion timeline. Tell Tokyo we'll connect at 7, there tomorrow morning. And have Caroline from legal join the Peterson discussion. I want her perspective on the new equity distribution proposal. Marcus nodded, making rapid notes. Also, Colin Westridge called personally, said it's regarding a private matter. I paused at the entrance to my office. Colin Westridge, CEO of Westridge Investors, the company Daniel had supposedly been meeting in Los Angeles. Did he leave a message? Just asked that you call him back at your earliest convenience. Said it was important but not urgent. Schedule a call for this afternoon. And Marcus. I lowered my voice. I'll need you to handle something confidential for me. His expression turned serious. In the 3 years Marcus had worked for me, he'd proven himself not just efficient, but unwaveringly loyal. Of course. I need detailed information on a cosmetic surgery practice called Elysian Aesthetics in Los Angeles. Specifically, any connection to Meridian Consulting or Daniel. If Marcus was surprised by the request, he didn't show it. I'll be discreet. Anything specific you're looking for? Financial transactions, client records if possible. I'm particularly interested in a patient named Cassandra Milan. Consider it done. He hesitated, then added, Is everything all right? I adjusted my blazer, squaring my shoulders. Just conducting due diligence, Marcus. Now let's not keep the board waiting. The morning unfolded in a blur of meetings, calls, and strategic decisions. I moved through them with practiced precision, my professional mask firmly in place while my mind continued processing the implications of Daniel's betrayal. By lunchtime, I had redirected a significant portion of my personal assets to accounts Daniel couldn't access and consulted discreetly with Patricia Winters, the city's most ruthless divorce attorney. Document everything, Patricia had advised during our brief call. And I mean everything. Bank statements, emails, text messages. If he's been this careless, there's likely a trail a mile wide. Don't confront him yet. The element of surprise is our greatest asset. At 2 p.m., Marcus slipped into my office and placed a sealed envelope on my desk. Preliminary findings on Elysian Aesthetics, he said quietly. I have a contact at the Los Angeles County Records Office who owed me a favor. The ownership structure is interesting. I waited until he left before opening the envelope. Inside was a corporate registration document showing that Elysian Aesthetics was 51% owned by a holding company called Bradley Ventures LLC. My husband owned the cosmetic surgery center that had transformed his Mistress. The pieces clicked into place with cold clarity. Daniel hadn't just paid for Cassandra's procedures. He had invested in an entire business, likely using it to funnel money while generating a legitimate-seeming return. The medical startup wasn't a lie. It was a carefully constructed front for his infidelity and financial manipulation. My phone rang. Colin Westridge. Right on schedule. Rebecca, he greeted me, his voice carrying the confident cadence of someone accustomed to wealth and influence. Thank you for making time. Colin, what can I do for you? I'm calling about a somewhat delicate matter. He paused. Your husband approached us several months ago with a business proposal regarding a cosmetic surgery center. My grip tightened on the phone. Did he? He presented himself as acting on your behalf as well, suggesting that your position at Veritech was providing insider information about certain healthcare technology investments. The room seemed to tilt slightly. I see. We declined his proposal, of course. Westridge maintains strict ethical standards. However, I recently learned he's been using our name in connection with this venture, claiming we're involved as major investors. That's concerning, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. And untrue. I assumed as much. I wanted to speak with you directly before taking any formal action. Professional courtesy, given our firm's relationship. I appreciate that, Colin. I can assure you that Daniel was not acting with my knowledge or consent. I'll address this immediately. I thought that might be the case. His tone softened slightly. Rebecca, we've known each other for years. If you need anything, thank you. But I have this under control. After ending the call, I sat motionless at my desk, absorbing the new dimensions of Daniel's deception. Not content with betraying our marriage, he had attempted to compromise my professional reputation and relationships. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Your 3 o'clock is here." And Daniel called, said he's taking you to dinner tonight. Reservations at Laurent's at 8. Laurent's, my favorite restaurant where he'd proposed 5 years ago. How fitting. Confirm the reservation, I instructed, and tell the Peterson team I'll be with them in 5 minutes. I spent the afternoon finalizing the details of my plan, making calls from a prepaid phone I'd asked Marcus to purchase during his lunch break. By 6, I had set everything in motion, meetings scheduled, documents prepared, contingencies in place. When I arrived home to change for dinner, Daniel was already there, a bouquet of pale pink peonies in hand, my favorite flowers. "You're early," I observed, accepting the flowers with a practiced smile. "Wrapped up my meetings so we could celebrate properly." He pressed a kiss to my cheek. 5 amazing years with the most brilliant woman I know. The irony was almost painful. Our anniversary was still 2 weeks away. "Let me change quickly," I said, heading toward our bedroom. "I won't be long." "Wear the black Valentino," he called after me. "The one with the low back. You look stunning in it." I selected the dress he'd suggested, applied my makeup with careful precision, and fastened my grandmother's pearl necklace around my throat. The woman who stared back from the mirror looked composed, elegant, untouchable. Perfect for a night that would change everything. Daniel whistled appreciatively when I descended the stairs. "Gorgeous as always." He offered his arm with theatrical gallantry. "Shall we, Mrs. Bradley?" The drive to Laurent's passed in comfortable silence, Daniel's hand resting possessively on my knee. The restaurant welcomed us with subdued lighting and the discreet efficiency that accompanied their Michelin star. We were escorted to our usual table in the corner, champagne already chilling in an ice bucket. "You arranged the champagne?" I asked as the maitre d' poured 2 flutes of Krug. "Anniversary celebration calls for the best." Daniel raised his glass. "To us, and to your incredible news." I paused, my glass halfway to my lips. "My news?" His smile widened, eyes gleaming with excitement that now seemed predatory rather than affectionate. "Marcus called to confirm our dinner and let it slip. The Veritech acquisition is happening. Said the paperwork would be ready by Monday." He leaned forward, voice lowered. "Baby, this is huge. Your stock options will be worth millions," I finished for him, remembering his email to Cassandra. "Yes, they will." If he noticed the shift in my tone, he didn't show it. "We should start planning. Maybe that vacation home in Cabo you've always wanted. Or the Amalfi Coast. The views are incredible, like the ones in Cassandra's Instagram photos." The connection was not subtle. "Actually," I set down my champagne without drinking, "I've been thinking more about our investment strategies, particularly Elysian aesthetics." The change was subtle but unmistakable, a tightening around his eyes, a slight tensing of his shoulders. "What about it?" "Fascinating business model, combining cosmetic procedures with social media promotion. Very modern." Daniel reached for his water glass. "Like I said, guaranteed returns in today's market, especially when you own the company." I maintained direct eye contact. "Bradley Ventures LLC, clever name." His expression froze, the practiced charm vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. For several seconds, we sat in tense silence, the ambient restaurant noise seeming to fade away. "How did you find out?" I smiled thinly. "The same way I discovered your affair with Cassandra Milan. The same way I learned about your attempts to use my name and position to secure investments. The same way I uncovered the separate bank account you opened in the Caymans." I leaned forward slightly. "You've been careless, Daniel. And I've been paying attention." The blood drained from his face. "Rebecca, I can explain." "No need." I opened my clutch and removed a small stack of documents, sliding them across the table. "I've taken the liberty of explaining it myself, in detail. To the SEC, to the partners at Meridian, to our bank, and to Patricia Winters, my divorce attorney." His hands trembled as he flipped through the pages, financial records, email transcripts, corporate filings. The comprehensive evidence of his betrayal, professionally compiled and devastating in its thoroughness. "You can't do this," he whispered hoarsely. "Your reputation is spotless," I finished for him. "I've done nothing wrong. You, on the other hand, have committed financial fraud, misrepresentation to investors, and attempted to use inside information for personal gain. Felonies, Daniel. Not just moral failings." He glanced around frantically, as if seeking an escape route. "This is insane. We can work this out." "Whatever you want?" "What I want," I said, my voice level and controlled, "is already in motion. As we speak, federal agents are executing a search warrant at your office. Your access to our joint accounts has been revoked. And Cassandra," I checked my watch, "should be receiving a very interesting package of information right about now." On cue, my phone vibrated with a notification. I turned the screen toward Daniel, showing him Cassandra's latest Instagram post, a furious, tear-streaked video rant about being used and manipulated, tagging Daniel repeatedly and exposing their relationship to her 127,000 followers. "Social media is so immediate, isn't it?" I observed calmly. "So, public." Daniel lunged for my phone, but I pulled it back smoothly. Around us, other diners were beginning to stare. "This ends one of two ways," I continued, tucking my phone away. "Option 1. You sign the divorce agreement my lawyer has prepared, relinquishing all claims to my assets and stock options. You resign from Meridian citing personal reasons, and you disappear quietly from my life. In return, I don't press charges for the financial fraud." His breathing had become shallow, panic evident in his eyes. "And option 2? I walk out of this restaurant and hold a press conference detailing everything. The affair, the fraud, the attempts to leverage my position. Your career will be over, your reputation destroyed, and you'll likely face criminal charges." I smiled pleasantly, as if discussing the wine list. "Your choice, of course." The waiter approached with menus, but I waved him away. "We won't be dining after all. Mr. Bradley isn't feeling well." Daniel stared at me, the handsome face that had once charmed me now twisted with a mixture of rage and fear. "You vindictive bitch! You think you can just—" "Oh, I know I can." I stood, smoothing my dress. "The papers will be delivered to you tomorrow. You have 24 hours to sign them before I proceed with option 2. I placed my napkin neatly on the table. "Enjoy explaining the Instagram meltdown to your colleagues. I hear it's already trending in certain circles." I walked out of Laurent's with my head high, feeling lighter than I had in years. In the quiet of my car, I finally allowed myself a moment of raw emotion, not grief or rage, but quiet, fierce triumph. My phone rang. "Marcus, it's done," he reported. "The federal agents have secured his office and files. Meridian's managing partner is requesting an emergency meeting with you tomorrow at 9 a.m. "Schedule it," I replied. "And Marcus? Take the rest of the night off. You've earned it." As I drove away from the restaurant, I noticed Daniel stumbling into the parking lot, frantically typing on his phone, likely trying to contain the damage from Cassandra's social media explosion. Too little, too late. I thought of the carefully orchestrated plan I'd set in motion over the past 18 hours, the meetings with federal regulators, the evidence compiled and distributed, the surgical precision with which I'd dismantled the life Daniel thought he controlled. He'd underestimated me, assuming that my focus on my career meant I wasn't paying attention to his betrayal, a critical miscalculation. At home, I poured myself a glass of the 25-year-old Macallan, a gift I'd bought myself after my last promotion, and settled into my study. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: the meeting with Meridian, finalizing the Veritech acquisition, rebuilding certain aspects of my life. But tonight, I allowed myself to savor the knowledge that Daniel's carefully constructed facade had crumbled, while mine remained perfectly intact. $52,483 he'd spent on Cassandra's transformation had triggered his own downfall, a poetic justice that even my strategic mind couldn't have planned better. Sometimes, Revenge orchestrated itself with an elegance that even the most calculating strategist could appreciate. I raised my glass in a silent toast to the future. My future. Carefully planned and now secured against those who sought to exploit it. The game Daniel thought he was playing had always been several levels beyond his comprehension. In the world of high-stakes finance and corporate strategy, I hadn't merely learned to play. I had mastered the board, anticipated the moves, and calculated the endgame long before my opponent realized the true nature of the contest. Tomorrow would mark the beginning of a new chapter. Tonight I would sleep soundly for the first time in months, secure in the knowledge that I had protected what was mine and ensured that those who sought to take it from me would face the consequences of their miscalculation. After all, as my father had taught me before corporate raiders destroyed his life's work, in business and in life, the most dangerous opponent is the one you underestimate. Daniel had made that mistake. He wouldn't get the chance to make another. Morning arrived with the clinical precision of a surgeon's blade. I'd slept remarkably well, my mind finally unburdened by the weight of suspicion and uncertainty. The clarity that came with decisive action was its own form of peace. My phone had been buzzing steadily since 5 a.m., calls from Daniel, from unknown numbers, and a flurry of text messages I had no intention of reading. Instead, I silenced all notifications except those from Marcus and Patricia Winters. Today would unfold according to my timeline, not anyone else's. The house felt different, lighter somehow. I moved through my morning routine with deliberate focus, selecting a charcoal Armani suit that projected authority without aggression. Today's meetings required strategic balance, firm but not vindictive, confident but not arrogant. Marcus called precisely at 7:30. The partners at Meridian are in crisis mode, he reported. Daniel hasn't shown up at the office, and his executive assistant just resigned. Cassandra's video has over 300,000 views. Any contact from the SEC? I asked, applying a final touch of lipstick. They've officially opened an investigation. The agent handling the case is expecting your call at 10 a.m. Perfect. And the Veritech paperwork? Awaiting your signature. The board has unanimously approved the acquisition terms. I smiled at my reflection. Everything proceeding exactly as planned. I'll be at Meridian by 9. Have the car ready in 20 minutes. My arrival at Meridian Consulting caused a visible ripple through the sleek, modern lobby. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Eyes tracked my movement with poorly disguised curiosity. News traveled fast in corporate circles. Daniel's social media scandal had clearly reached his colleagues, Edward Winters, Meridian's managing partner and Daniel's direct supervisor, was waiting for me himself, an unusual courtesy that spoke volumes about the severity of the situation. In his mid-60s with meticulously groomed silver hair and the weathered confidence of old money, Edward had always treated me with the carefully measured respect reserved for valuable connections. Rebecca, he greeted me, extending his hand. Thank you for coming on such short notice. Of course. I understand there's a situation requiring immediate attention. Edward's expression tightened fractionally. Indeed. Shall we use my office? He led me through the open workspace, past cubicles where employees pretended not to stare. I caught glimpses of hastily minimized screens, likely showing Cassandra's viral video or news reports about the SEC investigation. Edward's corner office offered sweeping views of the city skyline, the trappings of success displayed with tasteful restraint. He waited until his assistant had served coffee and closed the door before addressing the elephant in the room. I'll be direct, he began, his aristocratic Boston accent more pronounced under stress. The allegations against Daniel are deeply concerning. The firm's reputation is at stake. I took a measured sip of coffee. I appreciate your directness. That's why I requested this meeting. Before we continue, he said carefully, I need to clarify. Were you aware of Daniel's activities regarding Elysian aesthetics? I was not, I replied with perfect honesty. I discovered the situation yesterday and took immediate action to distance myself from any impropriety. Relief flickered across his features. That's consistent with your reputation, which is part of why this is so troubling. He leaned forward. Rebecca, Meridian values our relationship with Veritech. We've collaborated on significant projects for years. I want to assure you that Daniel's actions in no way reflect our firm's ethics or standards. I never assumed they did, I said smoothly. Which is why I've prepared this. I removed a slim folder from my briefcase and placed it on his desk. A formal statement clarifying that I had no knowledge of or involvement in Daniel's attempts to leverage my position at Veritech. Edward scanned the document, his expression shifting from concern to calculated assessment. This is comprehensive. I believe in being thorough. The second document outlines the steps I've taken to protect Veritech's interests, including my full cooperation with regulatory authorities. He nodded slowly. And your personal situation with Daniel? Being handled separately, I replied, my tone making it clear the topic was closed. My priority is ensuring that neither Veritech nor Meridian suffers unnecessary damage from his actions. Edward set down the papers and studied me with newfound respect. Most people would be consumed by the personal aspects. Your focus on the professional implications is remarkable. I offered a measured smile. In positions like ours, separating the personal from the professional isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. Indeed. He stood, signaling the meeting's conclusion. Meridian will be issuing a statement this afternoon announcing Daniel's immediate termination and our full cooperation with authorities. A wise decision, I observed, rising as well. Transparency is essential in situations like these. As we shook hands, Edward held my gaze a moment longer than necessary. If I may say so, Daniel was a fool. Not just for his ethical lapses, but for underestimating you. A common mistake, I replied, and typically made only once. Outside Meridian's gleaming tower, I checked my watch. The meeting had taken precisely 32 minutes, enough time to secure what I needed while maintaining professional decorum. I texted Marcus, Meridian meeting successful. En route to SEC. Have legal standing by. My car arrived instantly, Marcus having coordinated the timing with military precision. As we navigated through morning traffic, I reviewed the detailed brief my legal team had prepared for the SEC meeting. Every transaction, every email, every corporate filing meticulously documented and analyzed. My phone vibrated. Patricia Winters. The courier delivered the divorce papers to your home an hour ago, she informed me without preamble. No response yet from Daniel, but our sources confirm he spent the night at the Four Seasons downtown. Any movement on his financial accounts? He attempted to access the Cayman funds at 3 a.m. The bank blocked the transaction per our filing. He also tried to transfer ownership of Bradley Ventures to a new shell company. That was also blocked, I smiled faintly. Predictable. Has he retained counsel? Not yet, though he's called every top firm in the city. Seems they're all suddenly experiencing conflicts of interest. The satisfaction in Patricia's voice was palpable. I can't imagine why. How unfortunate for him, I murmured. My advance work the previous evening had included discreet calls to the managing partners of every major law firm in the city, inquiring about potential representation in a high-profile divorce case. Not technically retaining them, just creating enough preliminary contact to establish those convenient conflicts of interest. The judge signed the temporary freeze on all his assets, Patricia continued, and Elysian Aesthetics has received formal notice of the investigation. Their legal department is scrambling. Excellent. I'll be in touch after the SEC meeting. The Securities and Exchange Commission offices occupied several floors of a federal building downtown, their reception area deliberately austere, a stark contrast to the opulent furnishings of the financial firms they regulated. I was escorted to a conference room where Agent Lillian Chen was waiting, a slender woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Mrs. Bradley, she greeted me, using the name I was already planning to discard. Thank you for your cooperation in this matter. Ms. West, please, I corrected her calmly. I'm in the process of reverting to my maiden name, and I'm here to provide whatever assistance you need. Financial misconduct undermines the integrity of our entire system. For the next 2 hours, I walked Agent Chen through the evidence I'd compiled, answering her questions with precise clarity. The technical details of Daniel's scheme were relatively simple, using Elysian aesthetics as a vehicle for both personal expenses and attempted securities fraud. What made it prosecutable was his explicit attempt to trade on inside information regarding Veritech's acquisition. The emails to Cassandra Milan are particularly damning, Agent Chen noted. Reviewing the transcripts, his intent to profit from non-public information is explicit. Yes, I agreed. Though I should note that Ms. Milan appears to have been manipulated. There's no evidence she understood the legal implications of what Daniel was describing. Agent Chen's eyebrow raised slightly. You're defending your husband's mistress? I'm being precise about culpability, I corrected. Emotional manipulation is Daniel's specialty. My interest is in ensuring accountability for actual criminal behavior, not pursuing personal vendettas. She studied me for a moment, then nodded with professional approval. Refreshing perspective. We'll need you to sign a formal statement, and you should expect to be called as a witness if this proceeds to trial. Of course, I said, accepting the document she slid across the table, though I suspect Daniel will seek a plea arrangement rather than risk public exposure in court. Your assessment of his character? He values his reputation above all else. The social media scandal is already devastating. A high-profile fraud trial would destroy any hope of rebuilding his career. Agent Chen made a final note in her file. We'll be in touch, Ms. West. And for what it's worth, your handling of this situation is exemplary. Most people in your position would be less composed, I smiled thinly. Composure is a professional necessity in my field. My next stop was Veritech's headquarters, where the board was assembling for the final approval of the acquisition terms. Walking through the familiar corridors of the company I'd helped build from a promising startup to an industry leader, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was my domain, the world I'd constructed through strategic brilliance and relentless work, and no one, especially not Daniel, would compromise it. The board meeting proceeded with the efficient formality typical of high-level corporate gatherings. The acquisition terms were reviewed, questions addressed, and final approvals granted. My stock options, soon to be worth millions as Daniel had so eagerly anticipated, were formally vested. Throughout the discussion, no one mentioned the social media storm involving my husband, a testament to the professional respect I'd cultivated. Only as the meeting concluded did Walter Kensington, the 78-year-old chairman of the board, pull me aside, Rebecca, he said quietly, his voice carrying the gravitas of decades in corporate leadership. The board wants you to know that your position here is unaffected by your personal circumstances. Your value to Veritech transcends any peripheral distractions. I met his gaze steadily. I never doubted that, Walter. My commitment to this company remains absolute. He nodded, satisfied. Good. The transition team needs your financial oversight now more than ever. The markets are watching closely. They'll see exactly what we want them to see, a seamless integration and strengthened market position. By mid-afternoon, I had signed the final acquisition documents, conducted 3 media interviews about Veritech's future direction, and received confirmation from Patricia that Daniel had been served with a restraining order, preventing him from entering our home or contacting me directly. Marcus met me in the executive parking garage, his normally impassive expression showing a hint of concern. You haven't eaten all day, he observed, handing me a protein bar and a bottle of water. And there have been developments. I took the offered nourishment with a grateful nod. What kind of developments? Daniel tried to access the house. Security turned him away per the restraining order. He became agitated. The police were called. I processed this information while unwrapping the protein bar. Was he arrested? No, but it's been documented in the police report. Also, Cassandra Milan has gone offline, deleted her Instagram account about an hour ago. That was unexpected. Any indication why? Marcus hesitated. There are rumors she's received a settlement offer. From Daniel, I laughed softly. With what money? His assets are frozen. His position at Meridian terminated, and Elysian Aesthetics is under investigation. Unknown. But her sudden disappearance from social media is notable, given how active she's been. I considered the implications as we walked to my car. Have security do another sweep of the house before I return. And contact our IT team to check for any unusual activity on my accounts. Already done, Marcus assured me. No breaches detected. And I've arranged for additional security personnel at your home for the next 72 hours. Always one step ahead, I noted with approval. What would I do without you, Marcus? His expression remained professionally neutral, but I caught a flicker of genuine loyalty in his eyes. Let's hope we never have to find out. The drive home was spent in strategic planning, calls to financial advisors to restructure my portfolio, discussions with Veritech's PR team about the acquisition announcement, and a brief check-in with Patricia regarding the divorce proceedings. By the time I arrived at my Presidio Heights residence, dusk was settling over San Francisco, bathing the elegant facade of my home in golden light. The security team confirmed the property was secure, and I dismissed them to their perimeter positions. Inside, the house felt different, not just empty without Daniel's presence, but purified somehow. I kicked off my heels and poured myself a glass of wine, taking a moment to appreciate the quiet. My phone rang, an unknown number. Normally, I would let it go to voicemail, but something prompted me to answer. Rebecca West. I kept my tone neutral. Professional. It's Cassandra. The voice was tight, controlled. Cassandra Milan. I set down my wine glass carefully. Ms. Milan, this is unexpected. I deleted my accounts. Her words came in a rush. The video, everything. I told Daniel I wouldn't testify against him. I see. I kept my voice even. And what prompted this decision? He said he'd make it worth my while, that once this blows over we could start fresh, that you were the problem, too focused on your career to notice what was happening. I smiled faintly at the predictable narrative. And you believe him? A pause. I did. Until an hour ago. What changed? I went to the bank to access the account he set up for me. The promised settlement. It was empty. Her voice cracked slightly. Then my landlord called. The rent checks for my apartment, the one Daniel arranged, have been bouncing for 3 months. I'm being evicted. I moved to my study, activating the recording function on my secure line. That sounds distressing. It gets better, Cassandra continued, a new edge in her voice. I called Elysian Aesthetics to schedule my follow-up appointment. They said my file had been flagged. No more procedures without upfront payment. Apparently, Daniel's credit line has been canceled. Financial difficulties can arise suddenly, I observed neutrally. He used me. The words emerged as a half-whisper, half-snarl. All those promises about our future. About becoming partners in the business. About the lifestyle we'd have once your stock options paid out. I let the silence stretch, allowing her to fill it. I know you hate me, she finally said. I get it. I'd hate me too. But I want you to know I saved everything. Every email, every text, every promise he made about using your position for insider trading. I was stupid, but I'm not stupid enough to delete evidence. Now we came to it, the real purpose of her call. What exactly are you proposing, Ms. Milan? I want protection, she stated bluntly. Legal protection, and enough money to start over somewhere new. In exchange, I'll provide everything I have on Daniel's plans. Things even you don't know about. I considered her offer, weighing the potential value against the complication of involving Daniel's mistress in my carefully orchestrated plan. Send what you have to this email address, I decided, providing my secure account. Once I've reviewed the material, we can discuss appropriate terms. You don't understand, Cassandra's voice tightened. I need to move now, today, before he realizes I'm turning on him. Are you concerned for your safety? Daniel has connections, people who operate outside normal channels. Why do you think he was so confident about accessing offshore funds? This was new information, potentially valuable, possibly fabricated. Text your current location to this number, I instructed, making a rapid decision. Someone will contact you within 30 minutes. Bring whatever evidence you have. After ending the call, I immediately contacted Marcus. I need a secure pickup and temporary accommodation arrangement. Cassandra Milan. Yes, that Cassandra Milan. She claims to have additional evidence regarding Daniel's financial activities, including possible criminal connections. Marcus, ever unflappable, simply asked for details and promised to handle the arrangements. I sipped my wine, contemplating this unexpected development. If Cassandra was telling the truth about Daniel's connections to less than legitimate financial operators, it would explain certain discrepancies I'd noted in his transaction history. More importantly, it would provide additional leverage in ensuring he accepted the divorce terms without resistance. My phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. Assets secured. Initial evidence review appears substantive. Proceeding to safe location, I smiled faintly. Asset. An apt description of Cassandra's current status. From mistress to informant, a significant demotion in Daniel's world, but potentially valuable in mine. The house security system chimed, alerting me to movement at the perimeter. I pulled up the camera feed on my tablet to see Daniel's black BMW attempting to access the gate, being turned away by security personnel. Even from the grainy footage, I could see his gestures becoming increasingly agitated, his posture radiating the entitled anger of a man unaccustomed to restriction. I watched dispassionately as he eventually reversed and drove away, wondering what his next move would be. With his financial resources constrained, his professional reputation in tatters, and now his mistress potentially turning against him, Daniel's options were rapidly diminishing. He would be dangerous in this state, cornered, desperate, but also predictable. My phone rang again. Patricia Winters. The judge has scheduled an emergency hearing for tomorrow morning regarding the asset freeze, she informed me. Daniel has retained counsel, Martin Graves from Hillman and Associates. Second-tier firm, but Graves has a reputation for aggressive divorce litigation. Interesting choice, I noted. Hillman and Associates specialized in high-conflict divorces, often representing clients with questionable financial arrangements. Have you reviewed the material from Cassandra Milan? Just finished. It's significant, Rebecca. Emails outlining Daniel's connections to private banking operations in Malta and Cyprus. Details of financial transfers that don't appear in any of the records we've obtained. And most critically, evidence that he's been planning this for at least 2 years. 2 years. Half our marriage. The calculated nature of his betrayal should have hurt, but instead, it only reinforced my resolve. Forward everything to Agent Chen at the SEC, I instructed, and prepare a supplemental filing for tomorrow's hearing. After ending the call, I moved through the quiet house to the master bedroom. Daniel's closet remained filled with his expensive suits and custom shoes, physical reminders of his presence that would need to be removed. I ran my fingers along the sleeve of his favorite Brioni jacket, remembering how proud he'd been of affording such luxury items purchased. I now knew, with funds diverted through his cosmetic surgery front and intended to be replenished with the proceeds of my stock options. Stepped away from his closet and opened the safe hidden behind my grandmother's portrait, the one safe whose existence Daniel had never discovered. Inside was a single flash drive containing the complete backup of my investigation, along with something else, a small velvet box holding the modest diamond ring my father had given my mother 35 years earlier. The ring represented everything Daniel had never understood about me, that beneath the polished exterior of the corporate executive lay a woman shaped by loss, determined never to be financially vulnerable again. My drive wasn't just ambition. It was a form of protection, a shield against the kind of predators who had destroyed my father's legacy and, more recently, attempted to appropriate mine. I replaced the flash drive but took the ring box with me, slipping it into my pocket as a tactile reminder of my purpose. Tomorrow's hearing would determine whether Daniel could access any of his frozen assets. Cassandra's new evidence would ensure that he remained financially constrained, unable to mount an effective defense against either the divorce proceedings or the SEC investigation. The chessboard was set. My pieces were in superior position, and Daniel, despite his frantic movements, was rapidly approaching checkmate. I returned to my study and opened my laptop, pulling up the secure server where Marcus had uploaded Cassandra's evidence. What I found there confirmed my suspicions about the true scope of Daniel's plans while adding dimensions I hadn't anticipated. Detailed spreadsheets mapped out a 5-year strategy to systematically transfer my assets into accounts he controlled. Emails to offshore bankers discussed setting up structures that would be divorce-proof. And most tellingly, communications with a private investigator seeking evidence of non-existent improprieties on my part, attempting to manufacture leverage. The level of premeditation was breathtaking. Not just an affair with a convenient side benefit, but a meticulously planned financial extraction. I leaned back in my chair, absorbing the full implications of what I'd discovered. Daniel hadn't just betrayed our marriage. He'd been orchestrating my professional and financial destruction while sleeping beside me each night. The final piece clicked into place. This wasn't about Cassandra or even about money. It was about power, specifically my power. Daniel had pursued me because of my professional success, married me to access it, and plotted to take it from me because he couldn't stand living in my shadow. The $52,483 spent on Cassandra's transformation wasn't just vanity or lust, it was an investment in his post-Rebecca life. A life where he would control the wealth and she would provide the adoration his ego required. I closed the laptop, a cold clarity settling over me. Tomorrow's hearing wasn't just another step in my strategic plan. It was the culmination of a battle that had been underway since the day we met, a battle I hadn't even known I was fighting, until now. And now, Daniel would learn exactly what happened to those who underestimated Rebecca West. The courthouse steps gleamed in the morning sun as I ascended them, Patricia Winters at my side. We moved in perfect synchronicity, two professionals accustomed to high-stakes confrontations. Behind us, Marcus followed discreetly, carrying our case materials and maintaining a vigilant watch for media representatives. Daniel's attorney filed an emergency motion this morning, Patricia murmured as we passed through security, claiming financial hardship and requesting immediate access to the joint accounts. Predictable, I replied, smoothing my navy Chanel suit. And our counter? Evidence of his private banking connections is ready. Agent Chen provided a formal affidavit regarding the ongoing SEC investigation. Judge Ellis doesn't look kindly on attempts to move assets during federal inquiries. The courtroom was sparsely populated, a strategic morning scheduling that minimized public exposure. Daniel and his attorney were already seated at their table, both turning as we entered. My husband's appearance shocked me momentarily. In just 48 hours, he had deteriorated visibly. His typically immaculate presentation was compromised, his suit wrinkled, his complexion sallow, dark circles shadowing his eyes. He attempted to catch my gaze, but I focused on arranging my materials at our table, presenting the cool efficiency that had become my signature in boardrooms, and now, apparently, in courtrooms as well. Judge Ellis, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s with a reputation for cutting through procedural theatrics, called the hearing to order promptly. Daniel's attorney, Martin Graves, rose first. Your Honor, we're seeking immediate relief from the financially punitive measures implemented by Ms. West against my client. Mr. Bradley has been completely cut off from all resources, unable even to pay for basic living expenses or legal representation. This is clearly a vindictive action designed to handicap his ability to participate equally in these proceedings. Judge Ellis regarded him impassively. You're being compensated for your services, counselor. Clearly your client has access to some funds. Borrowed funds, Your Honor, and rapidly depleting. Meanwhile, Ms. West continues to enjoy their shared assets while denying Mr. Bradley even minimal access. Patricia stood unruffled. Your Honor, there are no shared assets to speak of. The joint account in question was funded exclusively by my client for household expenses. More importantly, we have documentation demonstrating Mr. Bradley's systematic efforts to divert those funds for personal use, including establishing and operating an unlicensed cosmetic surgery center. She slid a folder toward the judge, who reviewed its contents with practiced efficiency. Furthermore, Patricia continued, We've provided evidence of Mr. Bradley's attempts to transfer assets to offshore accounts in direct violation of the automatic temporary restraining orders. The SEC has opened a formal investigation into these activities, as confirmed by Agent Chen's affidavit. Judge Ellis looked up from the documents, her gaze sharpening as she focused on Daniel. Mr. Bradley, are you currently the subject of a federal securities investigation? Daniel conferred briefly with his attorney, who answered for him. My client has been contacted regarding certain business activities, Your Honor, but no charges have been filed. That's not what I asked. Counselor! The judge's tone brooked no evasion. Yes, Your Honor, Graves conceded reluctantly. There is an ongoing investigation. Judge Ellis returned to the documents, reviewing them methodically before setting them aside. Mr. Graves, I'm denying your emergency motion. The asset freeze will remain in place until this matter is fully adjudicated or settled. She turned to Patricia. Ms. Winters, your client's financial safeguards appear justified given the circumstances. However, I am ordering a modest monthly stipend from the joint account for Mr. Bradley's basic expenses, $3,000 per month, to be administered through the court. It was a nominal amount, less than Daniel typically spent on a single suit, but I nodded my acceptance. This hearing wasn't about money. It was about establishing the narrative that would shape the remainder of our divorce proceedings. We have no objection, Your Honor, Patricia responded. The judge checked her calendar. I'm setting a follow-up hearing for 3 weeks from today to review the financial disclosures. Both parties are reminded of their obligation to provide complete and accurate accounting of all assets. As the judge rose to leave, Daniel made his move, pushing past his attorney to approach me directly. Rebecca, he said urgently, his voice low but intense. We need to talk. This has gone far enough. Patricia stepped between us smoothly. All communication goes through counsel, Mr. Bradley. You know this. Damn it, she's still my wife. Daniel's voice rose, drawing the attention of the court officers. Rebecca, be reasonable. We can work this out privately. I met his gaze directly for the first time, noting the desperation poorly masked behind his practiced charm. There's nothing to work out, Daniel. The terms are in the papers your attorney received. Sign them and we can both move forward. You know I can't accept those terms, he hissed, lowering his voice as a bailiff approached. You're trying to destroy me. No, I corrected him calmly. I'm protecting what's mine. Something you should understand perfectly. The bailiff intervened, directing Daniel back to his attorney. As we left the courtroom, I caught a glimpse of his expression, the familiar anger now tinged with something new. Fear. Outside, Patricia turned to me with professional approval. Perfect composure in there. Judge Ellis was clearly impressed by your restraint. The foundation is set, I agreed. What's our next move? We've received a settlement offer from Elysian Aesthetics Corporate Counsel. They want to distance themselves from Daniel's activities, offering full financial disclosure in exchange for releasing them from any liability claims. I considered this development as we descended the courthouse steps. Accept it. Their records will provide additional leverage with Daniel. And Cassandra Milan? Patricia asked. Marcus mentioned she's provided substantial evidence. She'll be compensated appropriately. Not for her silence, but for her testimony. There's a distinction that matters legally and ethically. Patricia's smile was subtle but appreciative. You've thought of everything. Not everything, I admitted. Just every move Daniel would make. He's remarkably predictable when cornered. In the car, Marcus updated me on the morning's developments. The Veritech acquisition announcement had been received positively by the markets, our stock price climbing 12% in the first hour of trading. The SEC investigation had expanded to include 3 of Daniel's associates at Meridian, suggesting a pattern of financial impropriety beyond my husband's individual activities. Most significantly, Cassandra Milan had provided access to a private email account Daniel had established specifically for communicating with his offshore contacts, revealing connections to questionable financial operators in jurisdictions known for their banking secrecy. The final piece, I murmured, reviewing the email transcripts on my tablet. Forward these to Agent Chen immediately. Back at the office, I immersed myself in the acquisition details, deliberately focusing on the future rather than the chaos of my personal life. The strategic recalibration of Veritech's financial structure would secure my position and fortune, regardless of any lingering attacks Daniel might attempt. By late afternoon, Marcus appeared at my office door, his expression unusually solemn. "There's been a development with Daniel." I set down my pen. "What kind of development?" "He attempted to leave the country. LAX security detained him trying to board a flight to Malta with falsified travel documents." The news was both surprising and not. "Malta, where his banking contacts are based." "Yes, the FBI has taken him into custody. Apparently, the SEC investigation triggered automatic monitoring of his movements." I absorbed this information with clinical detachment. Daniel's desperation had overwhelmed his usual calculation. A fatal error in both chess and life. Has Patricia been notified? "She's already in contact with the federal prosecutor's office. They're requesting your cooperation as a material witness." I nodded slowly. "Schedule whatever they need. And Marcus, arrange for Cassandra Milan's relocation package. She's earned it." That evening, I returned to an empty home that no longer felt like a battleground. The security team reported no disturbances. Unsurprising, given Daniel's current accommodations in federal custody. I moved through the quiet rooms, mentally cataloging what would stay and what would go in my inevitable relocation. This house, like my marriage, had been part of a strategic life plan that now required adjustment. My phone rang. Patricia again. "The federal prosecutor is offering Daniel a deal," she reported without preamble. "In exchange for information about his offshore banking connections, they're willing to recommend minimal jail time." "And the divorce?" His attorney called 10 minutes ago. "They'll accept our terms in full. Complete financial separation, no claims against your assets or stock options, and a mutual non-disclosure agreement." Victory, swift and complete. Yet the emotion I felt wasn't triumph, but a quieter satisfaction. The resolution of a problem that had threatened everything I'd built. "Have the papers prepared for signature tomorrow," I instructed. "I want this concluded before the acquisition officially closes." After ending the call, I poured myself a glass of wine and stepped onto the terrace overlooking the city lights. The cool evening air carried the scent of jasmine from the garden below, a garden I'd designed and Daniel had claimed to love, though he'd never once bothered to learn the names of the plants that grew there. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Final security sweep completed. All systems secure. Mr. Bradley's personal items packed and ready for retrieval per your instructions. Another piece of the dismantling process complete. By this time tomorrow, my marriage would be legally dissolved. The Veritech acquisition would be finalized, and Daniel would be facing the consequences of his actions without access to the financial shelter he'd so carefully constructed." Notification appeared on my phone, breaking. News about a high-profile executive arrested for securities fraud and attempted flight. Daniel's name wasn't mentioned yet, but it would be soon. The carefully cultivated image he'd built would crumble under the weight of public scrutiny. I thought of Cassandra Milan, whose transformed face and body had been intended as the centerpiece of Daniel's new life, a life funded by my success. There was a certain poetic justice in how her Instagram tag had initiated his downfall. Beauty purchased but not owned, much like the success he'd tried to appropriate. One final text arrived, from a number I didn't recognize. "Thank you for the fresh start. Some transformations can't be purchased. CM Cassandra," acknowledging the second chance I'd provided through Marcus's relocation arrangements. Not forgiveness, exactly, but a recognition that we had both been pieces in Daniel's game. I didn't respond. Our connection had served its purpose, and now, like my marriage, it belonged to the past. Morning would bring the formal signing of the divorce agreement, the closing of the acquisition, and the beginning of a new chapter carefully insulated from Daniel's reach. The $52,483 he'd spent transforming Cassandra had triggered a chain of events that ultimately transformed everything, exposing his true nature. clarifying my priorities and reshaping both our futures in ways he had never anticipated. I raised my glass in a silent toast to lessons learned and vulnerabilities identified. The next person who attempted to access my success would find no convenient pathways, no unguarded flanks. Daniel's betrayal had revealed weaknesses in my defenses that would never exist again. Sometimes the most valuable education comes from those who seek to undermine us, a truth my father would have appreciated. His company might have fallen to corporate raiders, but mine had withstood a more intimate attack and emerged stronger. In the financial world, they call it a hostile takeover, when one entity attempts to seize control of another against its will. Daniel's strategy had been hostile indeed, but his execution had fallen short. The company he sought to acquire, my life, my success, my future, remained firmly under original management, and the receipt for his failure was now permanently documented in court records, federal investigations, and the quiet victory of a woman who had seen the trap before it closed. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.